going on, y'all? It's Bennett and
Yep.
Carr here, and we're back with episode 3. Got some words for us?
Yeah, this episode's called Imperfections, and that's exactly what we're talking about. It's been a goal of our podcast from the get-go to provide a sense of transparency in the work we're doing, both professionally and as graduate students. So we're speaking to a lot of times it didn't work out because, in a way, I believe those are the most valuable experiences.
Yes.
And if you stick around till the end, we got a couple great recs for you of just the kind of stuff that fuels us artistically and just makes us try a little bit harder at the end of the day. So hope you enjoy.
Yes.
It's good, man.
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Like I don't see you every day.
Fair enough. So something I was asking you to think about as we were sort of setting up for the pod, just sort of, we always sort of know a loose outline of what we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
but I think a curveball here and there is nice. And so I think in the effort of transparency, I asked you to think about a story about a time things just weren't working, when the imperfections were really present, and how did you persist and break through that moment?
I got you. Yeah, so I thought about that, and most times whenever you go through a theatrical process, it's pretty much follows the outline of you get the script, you have a table read, meet the cast, you rehearse, show goes up, show goes down, cool. So I was in college during the COVID years, right? 2020 was my sophomore year. So when I got back, 2020 in the fall, had to deal with living in that theater world with COVID. So that made things way more difficult. And on top of that, living in New Orleans where there was a hurricane at least once a year. We had a hurricane my senior year. So let's talk about that, the hurricane. So we're in this theater and we're doing The Skin of Our Teeth by Thornton Wilder. You seen that production?
No.
Read it?
Nope.
You would actually really like it.
You got the script?
I do actually.
All right,
It's
send
here
it
in
my way.
Columbus.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing that production and everything was going smooth. We have the stage, we're building a set, we're rehearsing, everything's going good. And then the hurricane comes. Everyone pretty much leaves the city. I go back home to Houston, and we get an email right before it's time for us to come back, like, hey, the theater's damaged. Like, took water damage, lights, sound, crash, stage, water damage. It's like, we might just cancel the show. And this is my senior year, so I'm like, no. And my director was very persistent on getting us on stage because how much it meant to me and just the other seniors around, or just everybody who was in the cast. And we had to transition our whole play to a stage that wasn't necessarily a theater. Like, the stage probably was lengthwise 15 feet. It was just a weird looking stage. No set could be on there. We literally just took the story, our costumes, and did what we could on that stage. But it was a moment where I had to really talk to myself and be like, okay, look, everything's not going to be perfect all the time, but it's all about how you find a way to persist through the adversity and just really make it happen and just make it happen. And we learned that with COVID. So we did the show, ended up being great. We had a couple sold out nights. We only did 4 runs, but with no set, with not any theatrical lighting, barely any sound, and it worked. And that taught me that things are not going to be perfect throughout that theatrical process, and we made it work.
It's interesting because I feel like with theater, there's this urge to let the medium fully complement the story. So having those lights, having that sound design, something I'm really big on is how do we sonically expand spaces that we're performing in? And so did it sort of force you in an interesting way to just hone in on the storytelling when you had all that stuff taken away from you?
100%. Like, that literally was what we had, was the story. And it was like, okay, now the story should be clear as day. Because you don't have any lights or sound distracting you from what it is. You just really are delivering the story. And that's kind of what we focused on. And what our director preached as well. He preached that, let's just focus on this story and get that story across. And it worked. It was great.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you started the story with, have you read that script?
Yeah.
Right? Because I think that's a true test of, if a script holds water, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you perform it with nothing at all?
Mm-hmm.
That's something I've had to find with some of my writing.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like you're missing half of it. You know.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
Could you share that same story? I'm just interested to know.
Yeah, a story of imperfection, like a
Imperfections.
time it just like didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you know, funny enough, I would say it was a similar process. This was also during COVID, which was like a little different in Florida than other places. But yeah, I just graduated from the University of Florida. This is December 2019. I was planning on doing actually exactly what you did, which was go straight from undergrad to grad. So I auditioned for a bunch of programs in January, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, like didn't have the best results the first go around. And I spoke to that, I think, on the first episode we did, which was like, I was just trying to show them what I think they wanted to see as opposed to what I should have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, in the middle of that process, my old college director, Ken McCullough, who I've spoken about, he had asked me if I'd be interested in coming back to the college and sort of, you know, being a part of his Shakespeare production of Much Ado About Nothing. He also kind of wanted like a vet actor in the room, you know, because he had a lot of really young new actors. And so he's kind of like, you know, it's not the biggest role, need someone to kind of, you know, show some ropes and things and be a presence. And there were a couple other alum who had come back, and you know, that was a really special experience because it was like, man, I think me and all those alum had the same feeling, which is like, we'll ride or die for this director.
I bet that.
And so it was wonderful, and we were going to open in April, which is great because I was only planning on staying in Jax for 6 months anyways. And yeah, I got to be about March. It was like middle of March. Whenever that basketball game was with Rudy Gobert, that's what it was, really. So it was like middle of March. Everything shuts down. We're just off rehearsal for a week, and then it's like, well, we're going to postpone this production.
All right.
And it's like, man, we put all this time and energy. I was so looking forward to performing on that main stage again because it's a wonderful, like, 500-ish seat theater.
Yeah, it's real nice.
And it was like, it's acoustically designed to perfection. Like, I was just itching at the opportunity to do that. And also, I think, like, really take my first swipe, honestly, at Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And that opportunity was kind of taken away.
Yeah.
And then I also found myself in a position where I was like, oh, I'm going to be in Jax a lot longer than I planned on, right? So come the fall, I'm still around. And he reaches back out and he's like, we're gonna give the show another go.
Okay.
And it's like, well, how's it gonna work?
Yeah.
And so the plan was they were gonna build an outdoor stage in the parking lot of the theater, and it was on a college campus. It was a massive parking lot, and they're like, and we'll be able to perform it. We don't know with mask or without mask at this time, but it'll be an outside venue, and we'll encourage people. And I think it was free, but you were expected to like bring like canned food or something to donate. Nice. Yeah. So it was great. So it was basically free admission, and we raised a ton of like goods for people, and people were encouraged to bring their own like lawn chairs or things like that, whatever they were comfortable with. So like drive-in movies were a big thing at that time. But the challenge was, much like you, we didn't really get the full complement of lighting and sound and things like that. And so I feel like I really got to kind of earn my stripes as a performer, because I was sort of doing Shakespeare in the Park in a way
basically
that hasn't been done before, which is like for this socially distanced audience, right?
Yeah.
So it sort of brought this new approach to acting. And, you know, I would say like 90% of that cast from the pre-COVID rehearsal process came back.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we only had to recast a couple people. And so I think probably similar to your experience, it's like at the end of the day, I think even when things aren't going perfect and it's like, I was really looking forward to performing that venue, and now I got to do this show with a mask on, which is like the costume designers, I mean, we still got full costumes, which was amazing. And they designed these masks for us. It's so funny thinking about it. I'll show you a picture sometime. It was like a mask, right? But it had clear
I know
sections
exactly
so
what
people,
you're talking about.
yeah, so people could see our face, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Which works in theory,
You're right.
but it's like fogging up,
Yes, I know.
So we had this whole, we had a whole like, kind of like mini instructional thing for like half an hour one day. They're like, this is how you prep your mask. And it was like this whole thing with like dish soap and spray and like it was so it wouldn't fog up. And so it was all these little added barriers. And then our little backstage area, we had to be socially distanced. So like in a way, you don't get that bonding experience that you usually do with a cast. Usually you're like sharing a dressing room with people and things like that. And like we were isolated.
Yeah.
And so it's really tough. I think the biggest thing was like being in isolation, and now it's like, but when we're on stage, it can't even come across. Like we are basically been apart this whole time, but ultimately it comes down to everybody's heart in that production. Like I commend every single person that was a part of that show, because it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, and it may not artistically be the most fulfilling thing to perform outside, as opposed to like being under lights and having sound and things like that. But it was, again, it's that why you do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I really wanted to take an honest swipe at Shakespeare. That was something I'd been wanting to do. And then it was that director who has since passed. I would do anything for that guy.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people in that cast felt the same way. And so many things working against us in that production, totally beyond our control, much like your situation. And again, it just ultimately comes down to like, if you love it, you'll do it.
You're going to do it.
You'll do it. And, greatness finds a way,
And in those imperfections, what I've learned from both of us is that you're going to find new things, or you're going to learn, like you're going to have a learning experience through those things, because the production, right after we got back from COVID, the university said, y'all could do a theater production, but it has to be something to where there's only one person on stage at a time. And we're like, okay, what play is that? Really couldn't find a play like that, especially not something that's not a one-man or a two-man show, So we end up writing our own play.
That's awesome.
Our director said, I'm going to name it Pandemic Protest, and y'all create what y'all want with that. So it was a mixture of the BLM movements in 2020 and also the pandemic in 2020. And it was just a collection of monologues and songs and, of this. But that show, I challenged myself to write poems. And I wrote like 4 poems, and I got on stage and kind of wrote a poem about this character who's like isolated in his room and how he's going through all of these things with COVID because he can't go outside, but he's also really distressed because he can't go outside and march with the BLM movement. Because my parents didn't want me to go march because they were like, COVID, we want to make sure everybody in this house is safe, so therefore you're not allowed to go out there and march for the BLM. And I was like really hurt about it. So just trying to talk about that experience of being isolated due to COVID, but also can't go stand up with the people that I want to,
Yeah.
So, and now I can write poems.
Man, that's so many interesting things about what you just brought up. Number one, because when I met you, you struck me as somebody who had an affinity for poetry.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that came out of a circumstance in which you had to challenge yourself, and you felt like you couldn't convey your feelings through traditional text. Like that's really interesting. And then I think thinking about both our productions taking place during COVID, there was a lot of social unrest. So I think there's like a part of when you revisit a production, it's kind of like you ask yourself, why do we need this today?
Yes.
And there was a part of this thing where it's like, man, do people really want Shakespeare right now? Is that what they need?
I get that.
And I think that maybe gets to the idea a little bit that theater, storytelling, filmmaking, it's an escape. Ultimately, it can be an escape for the audience. It can be an escape for your emotions,
Mm-hmm.
but it's an escape, and man, it's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah. So that was great. And now I feel like that jump started my writing. I think that was the first time I ever really wrote something for theater for performance. And then just hearing that it was good and it was liked, I would love to read it for you sometime.
Yeah.
And then that just and after that I was like, okay, let's write. Let's start writing some stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it kind of in that same vein of like challenges and imperfections, we've both been transitioning, at least with our time here, because I know we both have like a little experience coming in, but like starting to do a lot of film stuff again.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And that's always a really interesting challenge because it seems that it's this art of perfection.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, theater is like you get one take really every night.
One take.
And so how are you sort of balancing the two and sort of finding yourself in both spaces? Because right now, you know, you're prepping for production. You got a foot in both doors.
I would say literally I'm doing both right now. It's really good that I get to take acting for the camera class and also be in a production and also take the Gister class because I get to apply these things in these two different areas that we're working on. But, you know, we've done plays all our lives. We know it's one take. You know, you have to know every single line. You have to know every single blocking step you take. When it comes down to film, you know, you have a little room for error, or a little room to stop, cut. Let's try it this way. Do it again. Stop, cut. Let's try it this way. Do it again. And the one thing that I've been thinking about when it comes down between theater and film is the time that you have on camera. For stage, we have, you know, sometimes 2 months, maybe 3 or a month. But we have a good amount of time to practice and get that built up. Sometimes with film, you don't really have that experience, so you don't have that time.
Mm-hmm.
We learned in class that sometimes you get thrown right into a production with a stranger, and you might have to start at the last scene of the movie and then work all the way back to the front. So, but yeah, having takes is good. But of course, if we can get it in one take, it'd be great, right?
Oh, 100%. And I think we try to sell ourselves this lie that we can. Mm-hmm. Do you find more freedom in one than the other?
Maybe in my experience, I've had more freedom with stage theater because normally I come to the first couple of rehearsals just doing what I feel would be the character would do as far as blocking and acting, and then I'll let the director kind of sharpen those up. But I feel like anything I've done with film, that director from the jump has had a vision like, this is what I want. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to deliver that for you because that's my job. But with stage, I feel like I most times have that freedom just to go out there and work.
Yeah, that was interesting. You said you were like, that's my job.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit more of that pressure with film.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's like, it's a visual thing, right? You're framing the way the audience is going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't control how they're going to interpret it necessarily, but you can strongly suggest. As opposed to stage, there's more of this fluid relationship on a night-to-night basis, which I find a lot of freedom in. I can just speak on my most recent stage experience. You know, I know on a night-to-night basis, my solo show changed a little bit every night because of the audience, right? Because it was this collaborative relationship, right? Coming into a film space, it's like I feel like I'm here to do my job to fulfill a director's vision. Mm-hmm. And what I'm starting to find is that, well, no, I should be bringing a bit more of myself. I should own my space a little bit more. It's not to say this is what I think is right, but it's like, let me explore the possibilities of the scene. I know you were watching me work. Was it last week when I felt like I was kind of like trying to find more wiggle room with this character? Funny enough, when the camera wasn't on me. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, if I can just mentally start there from the jump, I think I can create a much more dynamic screen presence. So I think I'm sort of like relearning, re-walking, refinding my footing in film, right?
Yeah.
Because to me, I'm trying to avoid this mentality of film is a minefield and all you have to do is avoid the imperfections.
Okay.
Right? But I think that's actually what probably makes the work more human.
Yeah.
Is when it is imperfect, right?
Yeah.
It's not to say do something wildly different every take, but it also doesn't mean be a robot either.
Right. Yeah. What you said whenever you was like, you want to bring more of a personal self to the first take on film. That's something good to think about, because I'm sure you do that with theater as well too. And like, yes, at any point in time, there's going to be a director on set, and they're going to have their vision. But as an actor, we should always bring something to the table from the jump, and then let it be altered, sharpened, changed, whatever the case may be. So yeah, we're on the right track.
Yeah. Are you enjoying the preparation process more with stage or with film?
Probably stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know, for example, right now my cast, like, didn't know 75% of those guys beforehand, and now, like, great relationship. And just building that ensemble helps advance the production a whole lot more. So, like, I can only imagine if a crew for a movie, let's say a movie, not a TV show, but a movie, had, I don't know, ample amount of time to hang out, get to know each other, build that ensemble. Pretty sure the movie would be even better. TV shows, they kind of get that because they're always on set and they're filming seasons and seasons, things like that, sitcoms, stuff like that. But I learned that building that relationship early on in the beginning can help advance the production a lot more, because your scene partner will trust you more. And yeah, and then, like, even if you give feedback or things like that, they'll trust that, things like that too, and not be like, oh, I don't know this guy, so don't give me any feedback.
Yeah. I mean, I think going into any collaborative relationship with an open mind, open heart means that you're open to criticism and critique, and it's not coming from a place to tear you down. It's just, again, it's sort of in the way that we talk to our students. It's like, what's clear and effective, and what's not clear and effective, and where can we experiment a little bit? And maybe that's a nice segue to, like, man, I got to tell you, I don't feel like I always get it right as an instructor, right? I think there's imperfections in instruction too, but I think there's this, it's interesting because I feel like even though right now we are teachers and students, right? I still feel like as a teacher, I am a student in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I'm learning more about myself every single class I teach. We've been teaching the same class now for 3 semesters now. Can you talk about, like, what that growth's been like for you?
Yeah, the main thing is like the confidence from the beginning. I remember the very first class I taught back in fall of 22. Before, I think my class is at like 9:35. Before I even said hello, good morning, I was just shaking. Like, I was like, I'm nervous. Like, 21 years old. These kids are gonna be like, who's this guy? And versus first day of school this year, I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I'm up in the multi-purpose lab, so I got the lights on, got music on, got the chair set up how I like, standing up and ready. I'm enthused. And then that confidence that I had at the beginning now has driven throughout the semester so far. And I feel like it also has translated into their work as well, because I'm more confident in myself. I'm more confident in being their teacher, giving them direction, and I see the growth.
100%. I mean, it goes back to that director I was telling you about. It's like, we'll ride or die for this guy. It's when passion leads the room, right? Because I think passion can go one of 2 ways, right? Passion is like yielding a torch, right? You can either light a path forward or you can, like, burn people close to you, right? Sometimes passion's misdirected, it comes across as anger. But as an instructor, your passion is what is lighting a path forward for your students.
It's a good way to think about it.
And I think when they see you're invested, it makes it so much easier to get that buy-in. I know that's been a common bit of feedback from me. At first semester I taught, it was just this thing of, I want to get it right.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of, it was funny. I was talking to our supervisor, and he was telling me, first time I observed your teaching, a year and a half ago, it was like, okay, I'm Noah. I've got a structure I'm going to work within, and I'm not going to mess with it because I know this is going to work, right? And he was like, and now you walk into the classroom with a sense of ease. It doesn't mean there's any less preparation,
Right.
but you have a confidence in yourself, and you have a flexibility in your approach, which in a way makes it more personable for the students.
Yeah.
And I feel like a large part of that has been being a student myself and watching our teachers model some of that with us. Something I'll go back to. And we spoke about this previously, but we did this exercise with body and text tools, right? And it was just sort of these exercises of how do you shake up the text and make it more personal to you? And so every single class was really tailored to the individual.
Yeah.
And I think seeing that pliability, that flexibility from that instructor kind of like made something click in my mind. I'm like, okay, I don't need to be so prescriptive, you know, and be like one size fits all, right? Yeah. It just isn't life, right? It's be flexible, meet students where they're at. And of course, I've always known these things in the back of my mind, but it's actually, okay, how do I live that on a day-to-day, class-to-class basis?
Yeah. Something I noticed whenever I came visit your class the other day that we both have is that we have a good relationship with our students. And like, you have to have a good relationship with people you're working with for them to be able to listen to you, take you serious, respect you, things like that. I know I was listening to this D'Amico Ryans interview, the head coach of Texans, and he was saying like last year when he got on, he knew he had to have a relationship with every player, not just on a football level, but on a personal level. Like, know these guys' names, meet their families, go out to eat, things like that. Not saying that to get that deep as far as that, but just having that, just being able to actually be able to talk to your students or them feel comfortable being able to talk to you and know them by their name or be able to joke with them in class and things like that, that will have the environment be way more available for you, for them, for us.
I think availability is a great word. And it was a great clarification for them, for us, for everyone, right? Because it's like when you see a student really going for it, it makes your job easier too. It makes everyone's job easier. And there was, I know you saw this because my kids were like all running through their monologues that day, but like there's a snowball effect. It's this iron sharpens iron thing. Like when everybody's putting in a little bit and everybody's so individual in their approach, but it's like a little buy-in here leads to a little more buy-in there, and it just builds. And then eventually you just have a really fruitful collaborative space, which is really what theater classes should be.
It should be, yes,
exactly. Should be a lab,
And they should look forward to this class. It should be one of their top 2, in my opinion, favorite class they have in their schedule. Because you're not like you're taking calculus or biology. You're coming to do theater and have fun and play and experience.
I know there's a barbecue class here, so that might be one.
Skydiving class.
I thought about it. I really did.
No. So another thing I want to get into is the importance of connections, like and just connection within the aspect of like professional connections.
Yeah,
of course they're important.
Yeah, absolutely.
But can you speak to why they are necessarily important, and if there are any negatives to connecting, workshopping with anybody?
Man, networking is such an interesting topic because I think in a way it's kind of taboo. To some people, because I think some people see network as transactional relationships, and I don't think that's true. No. I mean, have you ever had an experience? Because I know I have. I can speak to this where you've met an actor and you can just tell that they are only interested in you because of the body of work that you have, or some sort of credit behind your name, or something like that.
I get it though.
So I think there's that side of it. However, I think there's something really beautiful about meeting people that challenge you, come from a different approach than you do. I think the most important way you can network, I think there's this misconception that like, oh, you network, you like go out to bars or something where casting agents hang out, you know, or whatever. And that's not the case. I think it's going to see shows. It's investing in work beyond your own. Yeah. Right. And just people that you genuinely gravitate towards. I don't think it's this, what can you do for me thing? I think it's, hey, I like what you do. I see you. And like, you know, maybe you grab a coffee, maybe it's just a follow on Instagram or something like that. But I think just caring about other people's work, you know what I mean? And just, because it's one thing to be talented. I think there's a lot of talented people, right? But like, if you have a good heart and you surround yourself by people with good hearts and good intentions, then like, you don't know what doors will open for you. I'll say the most important opportunities in my life have just been from people that I connect with on a personal level and maybe to some degree an artistic level. And then they just mention your name to somebody. It's just like, good people bring good people.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily have to be about like, what can you do for me sort of thing. Yeah.
And I think whenever you do approach someone to network with them, have it be genuine. Have it be genuinely, hey, I'm just genuinely introducing myself to you, getting to know you, things like that. And it can be as simple, like you said, as an Instagram follow. I know that's something I always do, because I have my actors page. So if I'm meeting somebody who's in this field in any way, hey, you know, what's your Instagram? Let's connect. And boom, it's connected. And we've talked about what type of work I do, type of work you do. You're gonna need me, I'm gonna need you, whether you work the camera, whether I'm, you know, behind the camera, front the camera. Let's work, let's collab.
100%. Yeah, I just got coffee with a friend the other day. Worked with him on a short film last year. Just so happened to run into him like 4 weeks ago. I was like, hey man, long time no see. Like, how you been? What you been up to? And I think he's maybe, because we all find this as artists, we find ourselves in a creative rut at some point. And so that's the other part of it. It's like, how can you lift people up too? How can you be that for somebody else? You know what I mean? And I felt like in that conversation, like there was maybe a sense of self-doubt there. And it was like, hey man, let's go grab a coffee and catch up.
Yeah.
You know, and we're hanging out and they're just telling me about all these little things we've done. And I'm just like you're still working, you know what I mean? Like you're still doing the thing. And the most important thing is that you just continue to do that. And I just kind of left it at like, hey, you know, if I can be of support, like if that's just you wanting to bounce some writing off me, like let me know. I'm like, I got a little more free time this semester. So like, if you want to put some sort of short together, we can do that too. You know, it doesn't always have to be, this end goal of leveling up all the time. I think like if you support other people, especially when they need it most, they'll support you. And again, that's like, I think that's being a good friend. I think for some people that's being a good mentor, right? People that are writers, like let them know, be like, are you looking for feedback, you know, or attend their readings or things like that, you know? If they got a podcast, listen to it. Support. Support. It's just support. Yeah. I think that's really what I look at it. And you never know how those little seeds, you know, can grow. And sometimes they just grow into like good friendships. Like, you know, stage manager he was stage manager from the first show we did here.
Correct.
I'm like good friends with him, right?
Yeah.
And we haven't worked on another thing since, but it's like, just because I showed a level of investment in what they do, I'm like, you're doing a great job. And just talking to them a little bit here and there, just planted a seed. And it's like, I got a really good friend out of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And like simple things like that, meeting somebody, genuinely being there, caring for their work and them like that, supporting them like that. You never know how big that seed can grow. That one person could have been in a creative rut, and you can inspire them from that conversation, and they can go on and go do something crazy, huge and big, and then come back to you one day, but hey, you want to come work?
Yeah.
And it's like, boom.
Absolutely. Yeah, it can be that. And it can also just be sort of the satisfaction of knowing you help push someone along the way.
That is great too.
Because I get that as an educator now. Like I can't tell you how stoked I was that 4 of my students got cast. Yes. You know, I was pumped about that, you know?
Yeah. And just seeing students who, if you've had some who was like maybe no theater experience, no interest, and then after they leave the class, now they're interested. Now they want to come back and see shows. Now they talk about they've been going to see shows in the city and things like that, or auditioning for this and that. That is great. That is great. The goal is always to inspire.
Yeah, that reminds me. I remember getting asked the first time I was teaching this craft of acting class, what is your teaching goal for this semester? And I said this, and I was like, my primary concern is not whether it is good or bad, because art is subjective. My primary concern is giving them a love and appreciation for this, because I know that this is the foundational class, and that if they find a love for it right here in this classroom right here, there's so many more steps they can take in the following classes, right? And that's where a really nice refinement process can begin. And it's not to say I won't challenge them.
Yeah.
but I just want them to find the love for it.
Yeah, that's all it is. The same love that we have, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I think being in an MFA program is really challenging because there are times where you have to fall in love with your work.
Yeah.
And I've had times, I mean, we've had days, we leave the space and it's just like, dude, I just want to go home, not think about this. That sucks. Because, like, there's a part of me that has to recognize how lucky I am to be in this situation right now.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But then there are days where I'm like, I don't want to stop. Yeah. Like this past Sunday was such a rewarding day for me. I got to do everything. I was pumped.
And it was a good day outside.
It was a great day outside. I had a wonderful time walking up to the building, but I recorded, I did some voiceover work in the morning. I went straight to a photo shoot after that. I went to a writing meeting after that. I did a couple self-tapes after that. Then I met with that friend for coffee, and I felt really good after that conversation because I felt like I lifted somebody up a little bit, and then I just went to a dinner with some friends. But, like, I got to really fulfill myself artistically in a lot of different ways. And yes, I was exhausted at the end of the day, but I was like, I am so full right now. And, like, we're about to go on break here in a couple of days, but I was like, I feel like leading up to break, sometimes there's a drop off, right? You're kind of like, you're just limping towards the finish line. But I remember one of the preachers in my hometown church, he had this sermon one time, and it has stuck with me my whole life.
Nice.
And it was this concept of finish strong. Yeah. Right? It's like when you're at the end of a marathon, you don't just sort of like jog to the finish line. It's like finish as strong as you can. And so just having those little moments like that, sort of re-falling in love with everything, and that's what really gives me the fuel to keep going. And that's why, because I got asked the other day, like, how long you been acting? And I was like seriously trying to go after it, like 12 years. Yeah. And it's like, that's a long time. Yeah. And there's been times where it wasn't easy, but it's just those little moments where you find the love again and it just keeps you driving. Has there been a moment for you recently where you've just found the love again?
I feel that way. Okay, well, yeah. Let me put a moment down. This summer, at the end of the summer, I collabed with my best friend and my theater mentor from high school on starting a company with us. And just us having the initial conversation about us putting on a performance on stage and then kind of saying like, okay, well, let's just turn that into a whole company and let's actually get it going. And like just the planning of how detailed it is and what it can be and what we want it to be is like, this is great. This is what I want to do. I want to wake up and do this. I want to eventually build from the ground up a theater in my hometown on my side of town and just really bring that theater, that love, new plays, new directors, new actors to that setting, and just the thought of that gets me going.
Yeah, and you're on your way.
On the way.
You're on the way, man.
On the way.
Well, I feel like this is a good place to bring it to a close. A really nice, positive note. I think one more thing I got to ask about, because I feel like this is something we should do, because we're constantly consuming plays, movies, TV shows, things like that. Yeah. What is one play, film, or movie that you've taken in recently that people got to check out, and why?
Play, film, or movie. Can it be a TV show?
Yeah.
I'm watching this show right now. I kind of paused it because I'm in the middle of production.
Yeah.
I can't really just watch TV. But I recommend this TV show called Your Honor. It's on Netflix.
Okay.
2 seasons. It's filmed in New Orleans. I have a friend who's in season 2, so that's why I started checking it out. But check it out. It's really, really good.
Okay.
Really, really good.
What's it about?
It's a lawyer in New Orleans. I mean, not a lawyer, a judge in New Orleans. And he's like the guy. And then he has a son who's in high school, senior, and he kills somebody on accident. Mm-hmm. So then he goes against the judicial system to keep his son safe because his son doesn't want to turn himself in necessarily.
Yeah.
But he is like the number one judge, so he knows how to get around it.
Okay.
But it's a lot. It's
I like
really
that.
good.
Like that.
It's really good. What about you?
Yeah, I just rewatched a movie last night. It's called Strawberry Mansion. You can find it on Amazon Prime. Okay. It is a weird movie, but I think it's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. It's about, it's like sort of this dystopian future a little bit where the IRS audits your dreams. So anytime you think about a product in your dream, they're like taxing you for it. And there's a lady who hasn't updated to the new system to do that, because they have it now where it automatically uploads after you wake up. And so this dude's conducting an audit of this woman's dreams, and she's kind of this kooky old lady. But as he is watching her dreams so he can audit them, he sort of sees like what a wonderful mind she is, and like kind of starts to fall in love with her through these like whimsical dreams she's having.
Interesting.
Because there's a different actress playing her in her own dreams, so she sees herself differently. Okay. And yeah, there's a really interesting plot twist in there.
Is it a different age in her dream?
Yeah, okay. She's younger in her dreams, but yeah, it's such a weird but delightful movie. And then I'll also mention I got to see Guy Madden's new film Rumors, which comes out in theaters October 18th, and it's got Cate Blanchett in it. It's just got an all-star cast, but it's about all the world leaders going on a summit to talk about world issues, and the world comes to an end.
Okay.
And it's sort of watching these world leaders grapple with the world ending and the fact that they can't come to a concise approach of how to approach that issue of the world ending.
Is it a little comedic too?
Yeah, that's that one I was telling you about. It's like a black comedy. It's weird, man. It is. Because I saw the director actually as I was like throwing out my trash. He was right there, and I just told him, I was like, that was wonderfully strange. Nice. And I think honestly that's exactly what he wanted. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, because it was just one of those things. I'll be thinking about it for a while, and there's a film professor here that saw the film too, so I'll be talking to them about it later today. But yeah, there you go, a couple of recommendations to kind of keep you afloat between now and the next episode. But yeah, pleasure, dude. I appreciate you making time in the schedule. Yeah.
Yes, you too.
All right, catch you on the next one.
See y'all.